Hello and welcome to SDN Tech Forum. Today, I'm going to show you how to use FTD and FMC, yes, the Firewall Threat Defense and Firewall Management Center nodes in Cisco Modeling Lab. As you may have noted on our channel, we have a bunch of videos related to CML because CML is the most intuitive and user-friendly way to get started with networking. Starting with CML 2.8, you can get a free version of it as well. However, it is not a full-fledged version, so you may not have FTD and FMC over there. So you can check out all the CML related video on SDN Tech Forum YouTube channel. All right, let's go back to our agenda. Here you can see I'm going to show you a working demo where I'm walking you through how to configure FTD and FMC and eventually manage all your FTD, because if you are an enterprise, you may have more than one firewall. So how you can manage all your FTDs collectively from FMC console. So what we are going to do, first I'm going to introduce you FTD and FMC nodes within CML. Then we are going to go ahead and initialize this FMC. That means the first boot, provide the IP address, have the GUI accessible. Then we are going to do the same thing for FTD. And interestingly, FTD starting from version 6.1 and above, they also have their own GUI interface. So if you want, you can, and if you have just one FTD, you can probably use the GUI interface of FTD itself. But when it comes to scaling, then obviously you need one central portal. From there, you can access all your FDM. However, I'm going to show you how you can manage your FTD from FDM as well. Then what we will do, we will disable the FDM and go ahead and register our FTD to the FMC portal. So let's get started. This is our lab. Here you can see there are a bunch of nodes, but we are only going to work with two of them, FMC and FTD. So I have one FMC 0 and one FTD, and they are all virtual appliance, virtual form factor. That's why we have V in front of that, FMC-V and FTD virtual. You can see they are connected to a unmanaged switch. So their management is going to a unmanaged switch, and unmanaged switch is connected to a external connection cloud. What is this external connection is doing? External connection is actually running in bridge mode. That means it provide a connectivity to external world. That means to my laptop IP address. So it's not confined in this workbench. It can actually go outside of this workbench and talk to my laptop or my routers, etc. Given we use the subnet which is shared between the physical world and virtual world. And how we are achieving that, I want to remind you, we can go back to my networking channel, and here you can see CML external connection. So if you're running it on VMware, you need to do a slight modification on your VMware center. So go ahead and watch this video. Let's go back to our lab. FMC and FTD, these are the two nodes. We are going to work on that. However, we have this full-fledged lab where the end goal is to run IPsec tunnel between ASAV and FMC and so on. But that is for the future videos. So let's go ahead and start our node. Before we start our node, I want to click here, select this nodes and show you the initial configuration. This is my FMC-V. This is a Cisco Firewall Management Center. It recommends to use 32 GB of RAM for vCPU. So if you are building it on VMware, make sure that you have sufficient resources available. So this is the default host name. You can always go ahead and change the host name as per you want. Connectivity is simple drag and drop connectivity. That's why you can see I have my FMC ETH0 port connected to a unmanaged switch. This is essentially a bridge. And config-wise, config here, you can see there is some startup config here, and that says we are already accepted EULA. In previous versions, you need to go ahead, log into the console and scroll down all the EULA and then hit accept. But within CML, it is already accepted. Insert host name, you can change the host name. Admin password, there is a default password already set. So if you're wondering what will be my username and password, username is going to be admin, and obviously this is admin password. There is no DNS. IPv4 mode is DHCP. So if you have a DNS server sitting in that ETH0 segment, and if it has an external world connection, it can actually receive an IP address automatically. Other than that, there is no IPv6. So it's a minimal configuration applied here. Let's check what we have for FTD. FTD is a day 0 configuration file. Same thing, we have EULA accepted, host name. There is no host name. It says insert host name there. So you have to define your host name, or you can simply enter a new host name here. Admin password is a similar password, but make a note of this. Firewall mode, we are using routed mode. And IPv4 mode is manual, where FMC it was DHCP. That simple of the config available here. Now let's go ahead and start our lab. And you can see all the nodes, they started booting at the same time. You can right click, stop, and you can also go to console. So I'm back. I must admit, most of the time I prepare my workbench, start the lab, and go do something else, come back maybe after an hour or next day, and everything is already booted so that I can start configuring them. However, during this demo, I happened to start FMC and FTD while recording this, and I figured that FTD and other node, they boots up in reasonable time, but FMC, be prepared to give it 20 to 25 minutes. It's not resources, it's just the node takes that much of a amount of time to boot properly. So don't doubt if it is stuck in starting state. So right now you can see all the nodes are in booted state, but there is another state where you can see recycle kind of notification here, and the actual state is started. So it takes time to boots up, but everything good. We have all the nodes available. We are using decent amount of memory and all those things. So it's looking very good. Let's go ahead and start configuring our lab. So let's go back to the agenda one more time. We have familiarized ourselves with FTD and FMC node type. Initialize FMC. So FMC has booted properly. Now it is time to log into the console and do the initial step so that the FMC console is available. Let's go ahead and log into FMC console. I'm going to right click and say console, insert host name here, and that's the login prompt, admin. And we have captured the password from day 0 configuration. So let me go ahead and copy the password here. That is the pre-configured password. And you can see Cisco Firepower, we are running FXOS and it is running KVM 760. Here, what you can do, you can put a question mark and you can see we have configure constant token expert to log into the expert shell. That's what we are going to do. And you can do system related things as well. So let me do some show commands, show version, of course, and let's expand our console. You can see show version. We have Cisco Secure Firewall Management Center 760. That's the release. 762 is also out by the time of this recording, but I have not upgraded my CML. That's why it is running old version 760. And you can see the vulnerability database, rules update version, all those details are here. Okay. What else we can do? We can do a few things here, like if you hit configure and question mark, you can see you can do configure network, you can configure a new password, and so on. However, at this point of time, FMC is available, it has booted properly, but there is no IP address. So we don't know how to access the FMC GUI. And FMC is main strength is GUI. So let's go ahead and assign an IP address to this VM so that we can access GUI. And for that, what you're going to do, you're going to go to the expert shell and then say sudo su, and we are going to go log into the sudo and elevate our privilege. And here you can see how you know you have elevated your privilege, because you are in volume home admin. And here you can see the question marks are not working. So you need to know the command, what you want to put here. And I'm going to, so this is the command configure network. Once you hit configure network, do you wish to configure IPv4? Yes. What is the IP address? And you can see it has already an IP address because the DHCP was available and it has picked up an IP address from DHCP. However, I want to assign a specific subnet, so I'm going to override that and assign a new IP address to this. Netmask is fine. Gateway, it has already taken a gateway automatically, okay, based on the netmask, but you may have a different gateway, so be sure you put a right gateway. And that's it. Are these settings correct? Yes. Do you wish to configure IPv6? Obviously, if you have IPv6 in your subnet segment, you can go ahead and configure IPv6. I'm going to say no, and it will apply the configuration. All right, you can see we have updated network configuration. Perfect. You can see updated comms and channel configuration. Please go to HTTPS IP address to finish the installation. So at this point of time, we can go and put this IP address on the browser. All right, here we are. So I'm going to go ahead and say advanced, unsafe. I'm fine with that. And here you go. We have our FMC console available. Username is admin and the password is the same password from day 0 configuration. Let me bring the password over, login, and configure smart licensing. So in newer releases, it only works with smart license. So you cannot have like a perpetual license or the pack and install the license manually. You must have smart account and license available in your smart licensing. So this is kind of like an initial step. I'm going to go ahead and say start 90 days eval without registration. But if you have a license available, go ahead and register your FMC with Smart Software Manager. I'm going to go ahead and say save. And here we are in FMC console. Right now there is no devices because it's a brand new device. So there is no FTD registered. Let's go and look at the overview dashboard. And here it talks about highlight of Cisco Secure Firewall 760. 760 is not that new, so I'm going to just skip this. Otherwise, you can see we have template for easier device provisioning and onboarding, security cloud control integration, AI assistance, firewall policy analyzer and optimizer, simplified SD-WAN, that is FTD SD-WAN. That feature is available. And if you are interested in FTD SD-WAN, there is a link in description. You can watch the videos there. And there are a lot of new features: machine learning based exploit detection, that is your IPS not 3, and passive identity from Cisco ICE. MITRE integration is also there, channel management workflow enhancement. So there are tons of new feature and document related to that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this for now. This is our summary dashboard, very blank right now because essentially there is no device register and there is no data coming in, right? But you can see we have the network threads, and nothing will populate because we don't have anything going on right now. Intrusion event status and all those things you can see here. So right now everything looks good. We have some RSS feed is also coming. Okay, and this is our status appliance information. Okay, geolocation, and I think this zero trust is a little bit new. Top zero trust application, top zero trust user. I haven't explored this that much. So this is essentially the default dashboard with different tabs. You can always customize. You can add new widget, or you can delete the existing widget. You can drag and drop and all those things into multiple things here. That is FMC overview. Within overview, we can see the management analysis. You can see all these features: policy, devices, object integration. There are multiple integration available. Dynamic attribute connector. So if you have things in cloud, you can use dynamic attribute connector to extend the identity to the cloud. And there are other things available here. What is this notification? Let's go ahead and see notification. It says no registered devices, time server status. Management server is attempting to reach configured NTP services. So by default, out of box, there is NTP services are configured and it is trying to actively sync with that NTP. However, management server is using local clock due to unavailable or unstable time server. And because right now we have IP address assigned to the management interface and there is no proper routing going on, that's why NTP cannot reach to the cloud. So to go to system configuration, click on this gear icon. This is essentially the system that what you can invoke from CLI as well. So this gear icon is actually the system, and you can click on configure. And here you can see we have all the options available, the system related options available. Here we have time. You can see these are by default NTP servers configured out of the box. And right now we cannot reach 23 or 64. Hence, we are using the local clock. 2 NTP servers configured already, SourceFire and pool.ntp.org. All right. So this is our system prompt, and you can configure a lot of things related to FMC system itself. All right. With that, let's go back to agenda and see where we stand right now. So we have initialized the FMC, and I have given you just a snippet of the GUI options and features available. It was not exhaustive. We will do more when we start configuring our devices. But right now, you know how to initialize and log in, and what are the different knobs available, and how you can configure the system related parameter. So that is good. We have achieved initialize FMC. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing with FTD. And now once we initialize FTD, I'm going to show you how you can work with FTD using the local GUI or FDM. And then we will turn off the FDM and register the FTD with FMC so that we can centrally manage it. All right, so let's go back to our lab. And now I'm going to console into FTDV. So right click, console, expand this. Here you can see it is sitting in the password prompt. Insert hostname here, and we know the password. Password is from day zero config. So I'm going to copy that password and enter username admin password. And you can see we have Cisco Firepower Extensible Operating System 216, that is FXOS, and FTD version is 760. The similar prompt. So I'm going to do a show version There are tons of show command you can run here. It's much more verbose than FMC. Here you can see we have 760 running. All right, so let's go ahead and initialize this. That means assign an IP address to this. And for that, what we are going to do, we are going to use the command configure network. And what you want to configure? I want to configure IPv4. So configure network. Please remember this because you may have to come here and change the host name, DNS, and whatnot. So I want to configure a IPv4 address, IPv4. And to how you want to configure, you want to use DHCP or manual. I want to use manual. And then starting here, just the IP address, subnet mask, and the default gateway. Pretty straightforward configuration. That's it. Setting IPv4 network configuration. And same thing, wait for confirmation, network setting change. Okay, so let's see if we can access our GUI or FDM at this address. So you guessed it right. The HTTP interface will not be available until we go ahead and configure the HTTP access list, because by default, this is block all. So I'm going to go ahead and configure HTTP access list and allow everything. Now let's go and try to access HTTPS. Here you can see we have Cisco Secure Firewall Device Manager, FDM, GUI is available, admin, and the password is predefined password. And now our FDM is loading. This is our initial page or the landing page, and it actually shows you how this FDM is connected. So it's not like a passive page or something. It is actually getting information from however you connect the cable, etc., and whatever you connected in the initialize prompt. So what it is showing you here is we have two interfaces. One is inside network, then we have the ISP. However, that is not connected. But look at the management port where we have the IP address assigned, right? And the link state is up. Configure internet connection, configure time settings, and then smart license registration. This is the workflow. If you want to get started, you have to do that. Here you can actually go ahead and configure your outside interface, your inside interface, and so on. Don't have an internet connection, you can always skip this to pass this screen and then come back and initialize it again. So this is the default landing page. I'm going to, for now, just skip this step because we are not after configuration inside and outside. We are just want to have this thing registered to FMC, and we will do the inside and outside configuration, network related configuration in follow-up labs. Again, FTDs only work with smart licensing. So be sure to have smart account and then register it. I'm going to say start 90-day eval. And then you have the performance tier. So based on your license or the network requirement, you should have purchased a FTD performance tier. This is a lab setup. I don't expect a whole lot of data. So I'm just going to say FTD V5, that is 100 Mbps throughput, and say confirm. And based on that, you can see you have this resource requirement, 4 core and 8 GB. I'm going to say confirm. Device initialization is in progress. Please wait until it is complete. So we have assigned an IP address from console, and then we came to FDM and selected this performance tier eval license so that the dashboard will start getting populated. Perfect. You can see we have enabled 3 of 3 interfaces. Things have changed. You can see all the interfaces are up. Connection is there, but they are not configured. That's why it says all up. We have 3 interfaces. Management, that's how we are logged in. And then we have inside and outside, and they are all routed interface because this is running in routed mode. You can also configure or create new virtual tunnel interfaces, but we will do it later on. If you want to configure sub interfaces, then you can just simply click on this, and then you can go ahead and select a parent interface, create sub interface, and VLAN and sub interface ID. That's how you're going to create interfaces. And we will see all of these things when we start configuring our devices. Okay, so this is our device summary. Let's go back to monitoring. You can see we have this system prompt where you can do network overview, user, you can create zones, destination, target, threat, and all those things you can do it from here, right? But the idea is we're not going to use FDM to configure our FTD, although you can do that, but we are not going to do so because FMC is most suitable if you have multiple FTDs. Let's go back to our FTD console and start planning for registration to FMC. So for that, let me see what is being shown as show managers. It is managed locally. That means you can either configure it via CLI, or if you have FDM available, because you open up the HTTP access list, then you can configure or manage this FTD from FDM. Now we are going to change this and be sure that it connects or register with FMC, and then this device is available in FMC console as FTD device, and we can configure everything from FMC. So we are not going to do anything else in FDM, and from now onwards, it's pretty much not usable. We are not coming back here. Instead, we will register our FTD to FMC and configure it from there. So let's go to our lab workbench, and again, let's verify show managers. Be sure that it is still managed locally, and from there, we are going to go ahead and change this. All right. So how to register? Before we register, we need a few things. So for that, let's go back to our FMC devices, device management. And here we are going to say add device. You can actually have all your serial number, device serial number available in Cisco Security Crowd Control or CDO, and then it can fetch the devices from CDO. However, we are doing one-to-one registration. I'm going to simply give the IP address here of the FTD host, and I'm going to call it, by default, it just copies the host name, but you're free to delete and call it whatever you want. So I'm going to call it FTD V01 and registration key. How to get registration key? Don't worry, it's not like you need to get a registration key from someone else. You can simply create your own static registration key, and I'm going to call it admin123 group. You can create groups because obviously you may have multiple groups and you want this FTD to be part of one particular group. An access control policy, let's create an access control policy because all these asterisk things, they are mandatory. So we must have a minimum new policy or access control policy. I'm going to call it default policy. And this is a placeholder policy. And select base policy, none is fine. And default action is block all traffic. All right. The policy is created and it is asking you to choose smart licensing. All virtual FTD require performance tier license and select the performance tier. We already selected the performance tier. You remember in FDM, we are going to do the same thing here. And that is our base or throughput thing. But then, and we will talk about licensing later, but you can have a different license for IPS, URL, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and say check to everything, add device, register. Started registration of FTB01. But since we have not checked the CDO, so it's actually not going and do anything. It will just sit here till the time FTD itself contact the FMC. All right. With that, let's go to our FTD console and provide the same registration key. I'm going to go back to the lab, and here we are going to say configure manager and see. You can say change the mode by saying local. Right now it's already local. So what is applicable here? Add. And if you have added, you can always come back and say delete, or you can edit as well if your FMC IP address is changing for any reason. So this is the first time configuration. So add is applicable for us. Add hostname of FMC, and I'm going to provide the IP address, and then it is expecting the registration key, what we created in FMC console, admin123. Is there anything else? No. So I'm going to go ahead and enter. If you enable any feature license, you must disable them in secure FDM before deleting the local manager. Otherwise, those licenses remain unassigned to devices in smart. So basically, it is asking you if you have used license in FDM, be sure to disable them so that you can also move those license along with you. We haven't done anything as such. So let's go ahead and say, do you want to continue? That means I want to migrate from local mode to a manage mode. Local manager is successfully deleted. So at this point of time, it is actively trying to reach out to the IP address of FMC and validating itself or authenticating itself with the registration key. It says manager successfully configured. Please make note of reg key, as this will be required while adding the devices to FMC. So it's an order of operation. You can create the registration key in FTD CLI first and then go to FMC and you fill out that form. We have done other way. We have created the device first in FMC and then came back here with that registration key. So it's like a both way you can handle that. So at this point of time, my FTD knows what is the FMC IP address and what is the registration key to use. We have the same information available at FMC via that static form. So let's see what happened. I'm going to go ahead and see the show managers again, and registration is still pending. All right. Here you can see we started the registration, and FTD V01 discovery from the device is in progress. So FTD has reached out, and you can see SF tunnel connector, and all those things. So it's work in progress. This is great. You can see it has identified the license, and it is actively adding the device. Perfect. You can see everything is green, and we have all these tasks successfully completed. All right. You can see we started the registration, discovery, policy per deployment, and policy per deployment success. So at this point of time, FTD is available in FMC console. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and dismiss all the notification for now, and let's double click. And here you can see we have from FMC, we are in FTD, and we have the same kind of capability available here. All the interfaces, virtual tunnel, and the device related information. So essentially, whatever capability was available in FDM, now everything is available here in under FMC. We are going to go ahead and create routing, DSCP, VTAPs, whatnot. So you can go ahead and create your interfaces. What will be the IP address, security zone, and all those things, inside, outside, all those things you can create from here. Okay. And this configuration will be part of like a future videos. But now you know that we have FTD that is actively in data path serving the traffic where you can apply your policies. And then we have FMC that is acting as a central controller, configure our FMC and also provide visibility to those different FTDs. Let's go back to our agenda. With that, we are at the end of our video, Cisco Modeling Lab, interactive guide to FTD and FMC node setup. So how to use FTD and FMC in Cisco Modeling Lab. What we have done, we have completed. First, we knew what is the initial configuration and how to bring the nodes FTD and FMC to the workbench. And then we have initialized the FMC. Then we initialized the FTD, and I showed you how to work with FDM. Follow to that, we have disabled the FDM and registered our FTD to the FMC. In our case, it was kind of like a easier because FTD and FMC, they were both were in the same network. However, if FTD and FMC, they are in like a different connected via a WAN, then you need to do a little bit of routing. However, we are going to configure everything like IPsec tunnels, different policies, netting, and whatnot. So stay tuned for all those fun stuff. Thank you for being with me today. And please do like, share, subscribe, spread a word. Thank you. And I'll see you in the next video.